For 50 long years, everyone thought they were the perfect old couple. A husband respected, a wife always silent. But behind those closed doors, silence wasn't love, it was pain. And on their golden anniversary, when the whole world praised her loyalty, the quiet wife
The
opened a
Silent
wooden
Promise.
chest. And
Part
what was
1,
inside
The Perfect
shocked her
Couple.
husband to the core.
In the
This is
small
not
town
just a
of
love story.
Rindavan,
This is a
everyone knew
story of
Madhav and
patience,
Kamla.
betrayal,
To
and the
neighbors,
most
they
shocking
were the
revenge
picture
you'll
of a
ever hear.
perfect old couple. Madhav, tall and gray-haired, carried himself with authority, even at 75. Kamla, slightly bent with age, always wore a calm smile. People often said, "Look at them, 50 years together. That's true love." What no one saw was what happened behind closed doors. Madhav had always been a proud, arrogant man. When they first married, Kamla thought his strictness was love. But over the years, the truth revealed itself. He controlled every rupee, insulted her for the smallest mistake, and treated her like a maid rather than a wife. If the food was slightly salty, he would bang the plate and shout, "You're useless! What have you learned in all these years?" If she bought anything without his permission, he would scold. "My money, you think you can waste it as you like?" The bruises on her heart were invisible, and she never complained. In that era, women were taught to be silent, obedient, and endure. For 50 years, Kamla remained silent. Silent, but not blind. Part 2, The Chest of Secrets. Every insult she received, every tear she wiped at night, Kamla found a way to store it. When she was 30, after one particularly cruel fight, she picked up an old piece of cloth and stitched a small quilt square. With every harsh word, she stitched another. Soon it became a habit. Whenever Madhav's words cut her, she cut a square of cloth and stitched it neatly. To him, it was just her silly hobby. To her, it was a record of pain. But she did something more. From the money he gave her for groceries, she would save a few coins every week. Sometimes a rupee, sometimes two. She hid them in a clay pot. When the pot filled, she sold some quilts secretly to a kind neighbor and replaced the coins with notes. Over decades, the pot grew into bundles. She stored them in a wooden chest, carefully locked and hidden away in the attic. Every stitch, every coin, every insult, every year. The chest was not just wood and iron, it was her silent revenge, slowly blooming. Part 3, The Golden Anniversary. When they completed 50 years of marriage, Madhav decided to celebrate. "People must know what a loyal wife I have," he boasted to his friends. "She never argued, never demanded, always served me." He threw a grand anniversary party. Relatives, neighbors, old friends, everyone gathered in the decorated courtyard. Madhav gave a speech, his voice full of pride. "Look at Kamla, the perfect wife. Never once did she disobey me. Always obedient, always silent. This is what marriage should be." Everyone clapped. Some even looked at Kamla with admiration. She smiled, just smiled. No one noticed that her smile was sharper than it looked. That night, when the guests left and the lights dimmed, Madhav relaxed in his chair. "See, everyone respects you because of me," he said, puffing his chest. "Now bring me tea." But instead of tea, Kamla brought something else, a locked wooden chest. She placed it in front of him. Madhav frowned. "What's this old thing?" Kamla's voice was calm, almost cold. "This is my gift to you on our 50th anniversary." Part 4, The Revelation. Madhav, curious, opened the chest. Inside, neatly stacked, were hundreds of colorful quilt squares. Beneath them, wrapped in cloth bundles, lay stacks of cash, more than he had ever saved in his entire life. He stared in disbelief. What is all this? Kamla's eyes glistened, but not with tears, with power. Every time you insulted me, I stitched one square. Every word, every wound, you see them here. Hundreds of them. And every time you handed me money, I saved a little. I sold some quilts secretly. For years, I stitched my pain into something beautiful and built my own fortune. Madhav's face turned pale. For the first time in 50 years, he had no words. She continued, her voice steady. You thought I was silent because I was weak. But silence is not weakness. Silence is patience, and patience builds empires. He tried to laugh nervously. All this is ours, right? Husband and wife's treasure? Kamla pulled out a set of papers and placed them on the table. Divorce papers. Part 5, The Fall. At 75, Madhav's hands trembled. You, you're leaving me at this age? Kamla nodded. Yes. I've given you half a lifetime. You filled it with pain. I'll spend what's left in peace and in freedom. Madhav's arrogance shattered. He begged, his voice breaking. I was wrong. Don't do this. Who will take care of me? Kamla looked at him with a calmness sharper than anger. I took care of you for 50 years. Now you will take care of yourself. That's your punishment. To live in the same house, surrounded by walls that heard your cruelty, but with no one to answer your calls. She gathered her belongings, very few, just what she wanted, and closed the door behind her. For the first time in his life, Madhav felt the weight of true loneliness. His pride, his power, his control, everything slipped through his wrinkled fingers. And he realized the bitter truth. The sweetest revenge isn't loud. It is silent, patient, and final. Part 6, The Aftermath. The town was shocked when they heard Kamla had left Madhav. How can she walk away after 50 years? Some whispered. But others, especially women, looked at her with newfound respect. Kamla started a small quilt business with her savings. Her colorful quilts, stitched with pain but sold with pride, became famous. She lived in peace, surrounded by warmth she had created herself. Madhav, meanwhile, grew weaker with each passing day. His wealth meant nothing, his words carried no weight, and the house that once echoed with his orders now echoed only with silence. He often sat by the window, staring at the road, hoping to see her return. But she never did.
Part 7, The Return of Silence. For weeks after Kamla left, Madhav's house became unbearably quiet. The man who once controlled everything now struggled even to boil tea. He shouted at the servants, but they too began leaving one by one. Without Kamla, the house felt cursed. One night, as he sat staring at the empty dining table, he noticed something strange. On the wall opposite him hung a quilt Kamla had left behind. The colorful squares looked harmless until he realized something chilling. Each square had tiny, almost invisible embroidery of words. When he looked closely, he read insults he had once shouted at her. Useless. You're nothing. My money, not yours. It hit him like thunder. The quilts weren't just cloth, they were his crimes, stitched forever into fabric. Part 8, The Shocking Will. A few months later, Madhav received a letter. It was from Kamla's lawyer. The letter revealed that Kamla had made a will. She had donated most of her wealth, earned from the quilts, to women's shelters and orphanages. The same woman he had kept locked inside a house had now given hundreds of women a chance at freedom. But there was one last detail. The letter stated, To my husband Madhav, I leave only one quilt. The one I stitched on the first day you broke my spirit. Let him cover himself with it at night so he never forgets who he truly was. When Madhav opened the package, there it was. A small, old quilt square, stitched decades ago, with one single word embroidered. Cruel. Part 9, The Final Blow. Years passed. Madhav grew weaker, lonelier, and bitter. He thought time would heal, but instead, every day became a punishment. The townspeople no longer respected him, they pitied him. One winter night, he heard a knock on the door. His heart leapt, hoping Kamla had returned. But it was a young girl holding a quilt. "My mother was saved by Kamla Devi's shelter," she said. "Before she passed away, she stitched this quilt and told me to give it to you." Madhav unfolded it, his hands shaking. This quilt was different. Each square didn't have insults, it had dates. The dates matched every year of their marriage, every anniversary, every birthday. A record of time he wasted by being cruel. The last square had today's date, and a line stitched in bold red thread. "Your punishment is not my absence, it is your own memory." He broke down completely, realizing Kamla's revenge was not just leaving him, it was making sure he lived long enough to drown in regret. Part 9. The Legend. When Madhav finally died, his house was almost empty. No family, no friends, no one to mourn. But in the town, people still remembered Kamla, not as the silent wife, but as the woman who turned pain into power. Her quilts were displayed in a local museum, each one telling a story of survival, silence, and revenge. And Madhav, he became nothing more than a cautionary tale whispered in hushed voices. Don't be like him, for silence remembers, and one day, silence strikes back. Thanks for watching, and do not forget to subscribe my channel.